The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organizations, but providing such life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organizations, but providing life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect.
Member Bankert?
Present.
Member Lovejoy?
Present.
Member Patel?
Here.
Member Saunders? Here. Member Shakaran?
Here.
Member Stark?
Here.
Vice Chair Carr? Here. Chair Ash? Present. We do not have a quorum, but Member Wayne should be joining us shortly. We can go ahead and move.
Yeah, I'll skip it around. Okay, do we have any public comment here?
We have not received any public comments.
Please note that the member Wayne is here, and so quorum is established, Emily?
Correct.
Okay, there we go. And I see no members of the public here. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which includes a summary of actions from March 27th meeting and acknowledgement of the member attendance log. Are there any changes or comments from the committee? Have we received any public comment?
We have not received any public comments.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve whatever the log, attendance log.
And the minutes. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, I got member Sanders and member Wayne on the second. Emily, please conduct a roll call vote.
Member Bankert?
Abstain.
Member Lovejoy?
Approved.
Member Patel?
Yes.
Member Saunders?
Yes.
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 Chair Ash?
Yes.
Motion passes with Member Bankert abstaining and members Ajir, Chahal, Esquivel, Essel, Sego, James, Miller, and Torf absent.
Okay, and that's the last official vote on the agenda tonight for clarification, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just before I lose quorum or something. Okay, we'll now move to regular agenda items. We have 3 informational items. The first will be introduced by Matt Kelly and presented by Stephanie, who? Awesome. Matt, are you with us?
I am with you, Chair. Can you see me?
Yes.
No, I see myself, actually. Sorry I can't be there tonight. I'm a victim of a vicious wisdom tooth extraction. But I'm very glad to be here to present to introduce this next item. I'm really just going to turn it over to Stephanie Hughes. She is the leader of the projects department, director of projects for CCTA. She has been working on the I-680 northbound express lane completion project for well over, I'd say, 3 years now. Actually, more than that. We started work on this in early 2019, I remember, because I've been helping her out on the traffic side of things. So this is a really big project for Contra Costa County, a big project for CCTA, and I'm just going to turn it over to Stephanie to have her introduce the project and talk about the draft environmental document. Stephanie?
Yes, thanks, Matt. Thank you, committee members, for having me here tonight. Just to provide an update. I've been here a few times on this project, and we're at a point where we have released a draft environmental document to the public. So I just wanted to highlight that for you guys, and also providing a quick update as well as how you guys can provide comments as you review the project draft environmental document that's on our website. So I'll just go quickly through an overview of the project, and hopefully you guys can participate in some of our public engagement efforts moving forward. Great. So the purpose of the project is to close or reduce the existing express lane gap that's currently on northbound 680 between Navorna and Walnut Creek, and just south of the Benicia Martinez Bridge at Arthur Road in Martinez. This is the last gap on the 680 corridor in Contra Costa County for the express lanes. So this is our last gap to close in our county. We're studying 4 build alternatives that range from either closing the gap completely or reducing the gap. I'm going to, before I go over each of the alternatives, wanted to highlight some of the key design elements that have been considered or studied. The first one being realignment of southbound 680. Really, this is at the location where the BART columns are at Ignacio Valley Road. Really, this is the challenge of creating enough space in order to fit in a northbound express lane. That's been a challenge for us, as this is the last gap. Physically, to accommodate space for this northbound express lane, we would need to shift the southbound 680 roadway as well as the westbound 24 connector further west, and we'll have pictures to show this in a moment. And this is the way that we would complete the gap through this design element. The second element is braided ramps at the Lawrence and Treat Boulevard location. You may be aware that as Lawrence Way entrance comes in with the vehicles, at the same time, those wanting to exit at Treat has this merging conflict, as well as the at the Treat Boulevard exit, there is a truck scale. So all of that movement with the trucks and vehicles have created a weaving conflict at that location. So the project is proposing a set of braided ramps to separate the Lawrence on-ramp movement and away from the Treat off-ramp movement. So there will also be some pictures in a moment. The third element is lane addition, essentially adding a lane to accommodate or to provide that extra express lane in the northbound direction. General purpose lane conversion. This is to convert the inside lane to an express lane, meaning the lane that's currently free right now, that's the fast lane, air quotes, will be converted to an express. And then lastly, the HOV conversion, which is the piece south of 242 currently is an existing HOV lane. We would convert that into an express lane, and that element is actually the same across all the alternatives. And then the rest, the first 4, they appear in different alternatives, which I will go over. So for the southbound lane realignment, this is showing sort of the existing situation. There's northbound 680 on the right-hand side. The middle is sort of the connector that comes from SR 24 or State Route 24 going eastbound, connecting to northbound 680. And then on your left is the southbound roadway, and that's the existing condition. In the future, or the proposal is to shift the southbound lanes to the left or to the west, fitting in a southbound and northbound express lane, where basically creating that space for the express lanes to be adjacent to each other. And that realignment is really between South Main to North Main about, and there's a simulation here I will show in a second to show how it looks like in video. So this is looking north, and in a moment you kind of land on the roadway as if you're driving on the express lanes. So you're in this new express lane, this is now just south of Olympic. You will kind of exit sort of to your left, continuing on this new northbound express lane. You will go under all these flyovers that are currently out there, the south, the westbound connector, and then the eastbound connector to 680. And the southbound express lane, it's also going to be on your left. So the whole thing is just shifted to the hillside to our left here in this view. And in a moment, the video or the view pans and it looks towards the south. You see the westbound 24 connector to the right. It's shifted a bit to the hillside there, the southbound 680, and then also then in the middle is then the southbound and northbound express lanes, and then to the left is the connector from eastbound 24 to northbound 680.
So can I ask a clarification question? So there, that's an added lane, and then all the other lanes are shifted to the right?
To the
make
west.
room for it?
Correct. And also, we were basically threading those roadway between those BART columns that we're not touching. So you'll see, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but no, you can't. So those columns are the challenge. Columns have been a challenge for us to weave the lanes in this area. And in order to accommodate all those lanes, things are like the roadways have to shift to the right side or the west side in order for this to happen. So this is one of the design elements that appear in two of our alternatives, which I will come back to in a moment. So I'll get through some of these harder to explain design elements with pictures, and then we can come back to the alternative. So this is the southbound realignment design element. The second one is the braided ramps. So this is the existing condition looking north. Oh, you can see my cursor. Okay, so right now, those who want to exit on North Main will go through this loop ramp. Those that want to go or exit at Treat will go straight, and this is where they would exit. And at the same time as they're trying to weave to the right to exit, there's a large volume of Lawrence Way people coming on to 680 northbound, and this is particularly challenging in the PM peak, as you may know if you drive this corridor. And at the same time, further down at the exit, there's that truck scale by the Treat Boulevard exit. And this has been an bottleneck area for us, and so this project is trying to address the operational improvements here. So what's being proposed is that those wanting to exit at North Main and Treat will actually exit at the same off-ramp. North Main folks who are exiting will be relatively the same. They go through that loop ramp. But the Treat Boulevard off-ramp folks will continue with the northbound loop ramp, but they continue on straight, and that Treat Boulevard off-ramp will now be elevated, like on a structure. There will be a bridge, and what that allows us to do is that the Lawrence on-ramp folks will be going under the bridge, thereby then separating those two movements and addressing that weaving issues that we have currently. So this is the braided ramps element that we've looked at. So with that, we have studied 4 alternatives. So the map kind of shows each of the elements. So 1C, or our close the gap alternative, is proposing to close the gap with that southbound realignment we talked about, and that's in the dash pink, as well as creating new express lanes, or brand new lane in the light blue. And then the dark blue is the conversion of existing HOV to express. So that's Alt 1C. Alternative 2 is to reduce the gap with braided ramps. So it would have the braided ramps we talked about at Treat Boulevard and Lawrence, but it would remain, the gap will remain, but it's a shortened gap because it does not propose to realign southbound 680. So that pink would be the gap for alternative 2. Alternative 3 is basically 1C plus 2, really closing the express lane gap, doing the southbound realignment, the braided ramps, and then the HOV to express. That dark blue is common to all the alternatives. So that's those 3 items, so 4 things. Basically adding a new lane in the light blue, closing that gap, the pink area with the southbound realignment, and then converting the HOV to express. Alternative 5 is to reduce the express lane gap. So this one also does not include the southbound realignment. It does include the braided ramps. But the difference here for alternative 5 is that we would convert the one general purpose lane, which is basically the inside lane, to an express lane in the areas noted in light blue. And then again, north of 24, the dark blue line is basically existing HOV converted to an express lane. And then as part of our analysis, we need to also compare all these alternatives with the no-bill option. So that's part of one of our no-bill alternative. So like Matt said, we've been working on the environmental document for quite some time. One big part of it is the introduction of SB 743, which I think you guys have heard lots about with VMT. And that actually resulted in us adding that alternative 5 with the GP conversion as an option or as an alternative that's VMT neutral because it does not add a lane. So we're here with a completed draft environmental document. We circulated it to the public starting May 8th, that was last Wednesday. And we have a 45-day public circulation period ending on June 24th. And we're hoping to complete this whole environmental clearance phase by June 2025, so within a year. So like I said, the public circulation period is from May 8th to June 20, I think that should have been 24th, sorry. But it's a 45-day period. The website here is the DED or Draft Environmental Document website where you can download the document. There's videos that explains the options or alternatives further. There is also a link to the VMT video that we put together to explain what VMT is. We are holding 2 public meetings in June. The first one is on June 5th. That's a Wednesday here at the boardroom at 6. And then another one that's virtual the following day on Zoom. So that's when you can provide, or you can come and watch a more in-depth presentation on the project. Also provide formal comments if you like to have that be spoken, but also need to be documented on formal comment cards or through our email or the website. And also opportunities to check out our poster boards and ask any more detailed questions of the design team. We've like I said, developed videos, and also we're relying on stakeholders and groups to spread the word about the DED, that it's out there for public comment and review. And we're hoping to select a preferred alternative by the summertime with the comments received. And that's my presentation, and happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. So we're going to do a round of questions and then comments. I think that works best to separate them out. So, Michael, any questions?
Yeah, Stephanie, thanks for that. That's really nice. Cost-benefit analysis, there's the do nothing, which is, I guess, alternative 4, and then 4 others. Various costs, various regrets and benefits. How do you, once you get the public input, how do you assess cost benefit of the alternatives against each other to arrive at the preferred decision? How does that whole process work?
Yeah, so cost is one of the elements we will look at, and that's not the only one. There's other things like VMT impacts, like that's pretty a hot item right now. I think more and more we're being steered away from selecting alternatives that induce VMT or have increased VMT, but also because of funding opportunities are being aligned with that VMT sort of rule. So all of that will be taken into consideration. It's not a direct like benefit cost analysis like we normally maybe would do in an engineering sense, but really looking at things that may not even be quantifiable, and that hopefully would be revealed through the public comments. Not so sure it's going to be black and white benefits and cost. So we have to look at the range of the range of comments that we will receive through this process.
I think it was alternative 1, the one that you moved to the west towards the hill. Is there any right-of-way implication?
Yeah, there is. I don't have that right now, but just there. Yes, there is some properties that will be impacted either temporarily during construction or permanent.
Private properties?
Yeah,
is it?
yes.
Okay.
There's 1 or 2.
So I'm assuming that at some point there will be discussions and negotiations with the
Yes,
with the
if that
owners.
is chosen.
If
yeah,
that's the
right.
alternative that's chosen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
excellent presentation. Thank you for that. I also had a question about costs, and mainly with the HOV Express Lane being converted, were there some analysis on fare charges and how that might pay into that portion of the project?
Yeah, so we're not, CCTA will not be operators of the lanes. As you know, the express lanes are being operated, at least in our county, it's by MTC. So they set the toll policies and where the revenue goes. I think, yeah, I think that's part of their whole managed lane or express lane strategic plan or expenditure plan that they have as a Bay Area. So how they would spend the money back on 680, that's something that MTC would need to look into and not CCTA, so I can't really answer that. But please do provide that comment. I think that's good too, for MTC to know and hear, because we don't really have, we don't have control of those, the toll revenues, so to speak, so, from the express lanes.
Maybe this is more of a comment than a question. I think it's clear that the alternative that reduces the most amount of general lane to create a toll lane is going to invoke the biggest emotion, I think, with the public. And so then how do you weigh that, the increase in revenue you expect from having the toll weighed against the additional congestion that would be created by reducing the general lane?
So in our more detailed presentation, the reason why the conversion of a regular lane to an express is still in the running is because it does show it as better than the no-bill situation. So there is some quantifiable benefits in terms of traffic and also like lack of VMT increase. So all of that will be factored in the preferred alternative selection process, but I don't think it's going to be in terms of the revenue part, because my understanding is that MTC's express lane, they don't generate revenue to like make money. It's more to address congestion. So I think any revenues they do get is going back towards maintenance of the facility, not so much. I'm not sure. I think hopefully I'm hearing your question right, because it sounded like you're saying the revenue generated can offset or provide benefits?
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not
I
so
was just
sure
curious as if there's some kind of a formula you're using to weigh the cost benefits. Since there isn't a cost benefit analysis that's going to be shared, I guess it really wasn't a question so much as, just pointing out that the folks that are going to get involved and show up for a meeting and have public comment are going to be those folks that are most concerned about the additional congestion caused by losing a general lane and not wanting to pay the toll.
Yeah.
Stating the obvious here.
Yeah, no, I get it, and that's one thing we're weighing. They're just competing interests, I think, for this project. We're the first, from our understanding, our first project in the Bay Area to have gone through this general purpose lane conversion in the public with the DED. So this is our first stab at it, or just the first project to have to face this because of VMT. So we're very curious about what the public will say, and hopefully everyone is providing comments to make their voices heard, because their voices from either end, folks that don't want to have more lanes and build more.
Well, I guess that's
So-
it. I mean, this is kind
So
of the
hold that up
first
for your
step.
comment, because we're gonna finish questions,
Oh, okay.
and then we're gonna
Sorry.
come back to you.
So, I mean, between the alternatives, do you know what the level of service is going to be in terms of which one's providing, throughput and speeds and stuff like that? Is that known, or is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
part of the next stages?
No, we have that, just not part of this presentation. So in general, the alternative 2 will fare best for State Route 24, and I don't want to speak, I'm going by memory. So they all have benefits in terms of comparing to no build, and again, that's why they're still in the running as an alternative being considered. And we have eliminated alternatives that didn't perform well when compared to no build, like it makes things worse. So that's been eliminated. So all of them produce some traffic benefit or operational benefits. And and a lot of it is the braided ramps that we talked about. That will have significant positive benefits in the area because of weaving that happens in that location. So I think, because most of them do include braided ramps, that will be in the analysis that we can produce or show the evidence of operational traffic benefits for all the alternatives.
And which
Alternative
one's the
5 is like,
highest now?
I'm sorry,
Which one is the highest now?
highest in,
Flow through and capacity?
as a system, I think it's alternative 2. But then again, it's in our table, which hopefully we're presenting at the public meetings, will show sort of the comparison with all the alternatives being studied. And I apologize, this was supposed to be a quick update for you guys to come to our public meeting so that you can learn more. We will have boards and we can dive more into it. And it will be recorded if you cannot make those 2 meetings. But I just wanted to not get into the weeds here because
Okay, that's
the
fine.
designers
But
are
we
not
can
here as
go
well.
read- It's out there now, we could go read it.
Yes,
and
if you go
answer.
to the environmental document, it has it, and if you like to peruse through it.
Can staff circulate that document to the members?
So in the deck, yeah, if you can go
Send a
into
link
the,
or whatever.
yeah, it would be large to send. You would go to the website that I showed.
They'll send it out.
Oh, no, you can't send, yeah, I don't think, you can send the link to the website. Yeah, don't send the whole DED. That would be hundreds of, whatever, gigabytes or whatever you call it.
Okay, so can you go back to where you had the 5 options and the dollar figures?
Oh, that one, sorry.
Who pays for that? So MTC gets the money, is that CCTA's budget, is that MTC's?
So we have secured funding. We have about 15 million in the State Transportation Improvement Program, or STIP, for the design phase, for initial phase. And then we have Regional Measure 3 money. There's an express lane category for 680 in that, so we are able to tap into that for construction. We have applied for a couple of federal grants recently. It's called MEGA, that included this project. And then there's also state funding opportunities later this year under the SB1, the Senate Bill 1 Solution for Congested Corridor Program that we're going after some construction money for. So we don't have all this money right now. The point of this exercise is to select an alternative and then figure out the funding. I mean, we're doing that concurrently, looking for opportunities to fill that gap. But we don't, want to make sure it's clear, like we don't have, for example, 240 million lying around.
I think somebody's trying to get in and it's locked. Thanks, John. Okay, and then you were talking about the North Main exit, and it's my understanding from Mr. Kelly that some of the biggest backups on 24 are actually tied to that North Main exit being like overloaded or something. Do I have that sort of correct?
Maybe Matt can clarify what he said, because I'm not sure what I wasn't
Sorry,
in
yeah.
the room.
Sorry, Stephanie. Yeah, no, what I think I was talking to the chair about was just that in the early afternoon, that initial kind of congestion wave starts at the merge, the Lawrence Street merge, and heads back, backs up onto 24 and 680. But it's starting right outside the office.
Maybe there's a reason for that. So out of these options, which one included the improvements to that exit ramp? Because I wasn't quite sure.
The braided ramp, so yeah, it's 2. So the little figure with the bubble with the cross.
Oh, got it.
With
2, 3.
the swiggly, yeah, that's supposed to denote braided ramps. So 2, 3, and 5 have the braided ramps that we talked about that will help the weaving issue at Lawrence and Main.
Got it.
and
So
treat.
that would have, in addition to the express lane impact on traffic, that would have additional, like, significant benefits compared to like one and, I guess, just one.
Right,
that-
so the braided ramps was at first contemplated for alternative 2 because it doesn't close the gap completely. So adding that that set of braided ramps will help the operational improvements. And then 3 was just like 1 plus 2, like let's see how that looks like, closing the gap and have the braided ramps. And then alternative 5, where we take away a free lane, having the braided ramps there also makes that alternative perform better. So actually, all but 1C have the braided ramps that you're talking about, that you're asking about.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is get comments from anybody who wants to provide comments, and then without stressing Matt out too much, is I think we can actually then, because it is public record now, we could turn around and ask staff to submit that as part of the public comment next week. So does anybody have any comments or suggestions on what they would like to do? We'll keep going back this way.
I guess I have more a follow-up question than a comment. Maybe a comment comes later. Trying to wrap my head around all of this. So alternative 5 is the only one that would take an existing free lane.
Correct.
And by good fortune, I actually drove this today, so it's kind of fresh in my memory. Where 24 comes in and 680 from the south, you've got 3 lanes before you can, if you're coming in from 680 north, you've got 3 lanes before you can get back over to the left lane if that's an HOV. So when you talk about reducing the gap,
So,
what does that look like? It does, or do you force a lane out of the main lane to make space for a northbound
Are you
680 to the HOV? I'm trying to figure out how the HOV stays contiguous through that little magenta hashed.
so in
section.
you're talking about alternative 5 where you take a lane?
Yes.
So alternative 5, where the light blue is from Navorna to the end of that pink, that will have a new express lane by taking away the inside lane. So right now, Navorna is where the existing,
Right.
at Navorna is where the existing express lane ends right now. It just kind of ends.
Right.
So to continue on, so for alternative 5, it will be extended by taking away the current inside lane and making that into an express. So not widening, but the current inside lane right now will be turned into an express lane.
I got that.
Okay, and
What
then there will be a
happens
gap,
here-
then there's a gap, there's no express lane,
Okay.
like it does today.
Okay, so it's.
Right, and then it picks back up into a new express lane by taking away, again, the inside lane at the top of that pink line from North Main all the way to 242, that light blue. That will be an new express lane by, again, taking away the inside lane that's currently out
So
there.
traffic would be expected to basically find its way back over to the left to the express lane.
Right, it's basically what they do today, it's just the gap is smaller than it is today. Because right now, the gap is from Navorna to 242. There's no HOV, and there's no.
There's no HOV all the way until you get to
242, yeah.
right?
So it's basically like today, but just that gap is shorter where the pink is.
Right, because you do add a lane north. This part isn't added.
Not adding, well, taking a lane to be an
Taking a
express
lane
lane.
through here as well?
Correct. The light blue.
Holy crap.
So the light, for alternative 5, the light blue is where you would take away a general purpose lane. So like in the legend, it says new northbound express lane by either lane addition or general purpose lane conversion, depending on which alternative you look at. So for alternative 5 that you're asking about, the light blue is where the inside lane will become a conversion to an express.
Okay, no, I'm glad I asked, because I.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked too, because
I had it completely backwards. I thought it was that little
no,
magenta section where a lane was
no,
going
yeah, so the
away.
magenta section is the realignment part where,
Right.
no, this is very helpful because we're also presenting to the public in a couple of weeks, and we're trying to make this as easily, just testing it out on you guys too. There's a lot, and there's a video that is in the deck, a link. Hopefully that also explains it. It's about 5 minutes. We couldn't go shorter than that, but we really needed the time needed to kind of explain all of this. So yeah, thank you for the question, and I can see where one can get confused or.
That's a significant takeaway.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of the folks who.
option 5.
In alternative 5, correct.
5,
So so basically 1, 2, and 3, the light blue is to add a new lane, basically widening. Alternative 5, the light blue is converting an existing lane to an express lane.
or general purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it. HOV to express.
HOV to express, dark blue, right. And that's not very controversial, I think.
No.
It is, we expect some comments about the light blue, the conversion from, like, basically a free lane being taken away and making it into a toll lane. That's something we're concerned about. We've heard.
It affects a very smaller portion of the population than taking, obviously, a general purpose lane. It's just those folks that are currently utilizing it, right? So this is almost a litmus test to see how the public's going to react to the idea of paying a toll to use the freeway
Sure,
in the future.
Yeah, and that's more and more.
This is the first stand this year.
Yeah, like I said, I think this is the first draft environmental document that includes a general purpose lane or regular lane conversion. So we're kind of open to seeing what happens and get some comments for us to decide on an alternative.
More comments? Okay. No, you can go. No, I was just going to circle back to. Your last chance.
Come to the public meeting. It's not your last chance.
So.
It's really not your last chance.
So here's my comment. I sense palpably the conflict, tension between VMT out of Sacramento and the desire to ratchet it down some way, somehow, when VMT tracks GDP almost always. And that's going to go up against a population of people that take the 680 to get to Fairfield, take the 680 to get to Antioch, take the 680 to get to Discovery Bay. A lot of folks who, are in trade roles, that drive trucks, that don't really have an alternative to take mass transit. And they're going to basically take it in the shorts for the sake of VMT if we don't do an option that adds a lane for the purpose of completing the express lanes on the northbound 680. So I think that's where the tension is going to be quite palpable. Whether those people know to show up at a meeting like this on June 5th and 6th, they may not even live in Contra Costa County, but they're the ones who are going to be most impacted by this. So perhaps something to think about, and I don't know if seems to matter. I don't know how you get their input, but there are counties beyond that are serviced by 680 that will have populations of people very impacted by the choices that are made here.
Yeah. So we're relying on our stakeholders, our board members, our committee members to spread the word to their constituency, and hopefully people are aware and spread the word here. I mean, with your folks too, so that people can have the opportunity to provide their input.
East Contra Costa has a more direct opportunity, but what about folks in Solano County who rely on this road?
We're working on it through our Director of External Affairs to see how we can, Facebook, LinkedIn, like anywhere we can spread the word.
I'll stop.
Just a quick comment. I'm sure you guys have thought about it, or you're not at that stage yet. But thinking about phasing and construction, it might be quite challenging to phase this project or make it such that is the, like you mentioned, also the least convenience to people. So something to think about is whether how much of it is going to be nighttime work versus daytime, holidays. Like right now, as you know, for 2 weekends in a row, 680
Oh, yeah.
South,
Yeah.
Dublin, that section is down to 1 lane, from Al Costa down to 580. And this weekend happened that we went twice, had to go to the South Bay. And it was just absolutely crazy, nightmare. It took double the amount. So just think about construction phasing and traffic control.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Just like I guess a clarifying question. So the express lanes, would traffic be limited to not exit?
Oh, you're talking about access restrictions?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we found that there wouldn't be any buffers. You're talking about like where you can't get in and out, yeah. We've showed that there shouldn't be any physical buffer, well, except for the part where you crossed over to the southbound and you're in the barrier, the video we just saw. That area you definitely can't get out because you're inside the barriers. But outside of that, there shouldn't be any, at least from my understanding with MTC, they're not recommending any buffers. So you should be able to get out.
Is that like a double white where they wouldn't be, they could be allowed, but I'm just wondering,
It's
with all the exits happening in this short distance, it could be.
You can get out, yeah. It's not, I know the southbound, there are some restrictions south of the 24 interchange. But yeah, there should not be any buffers as of now, like none are being proposed.
Okay. Were there any, you probably did have some studies about actually restricting it to just through traffic?
Yeah, no, I think they found that it wouldn't be necessary to have buffers to restrict people getting in and out for operational reasons.
Okay, thank you.
I have sort of a clarifying question, Stephanie. So could you talk a little bit about the VMT, the impetus for Alternative 5, but then also what the new VMT legislation does to Alternatives 1C, 2, and 3 as far as requirements for mitigation?
Yeah, sure. So the reason why Alternative 5 was added is because during public scoping, so another opportunity to face the public early on in the project to see if there are suggestions for alternatives that we should study, and we did get some letters from groups asking us to study a conversion alternative, such as Alternative 5. And we added it and we study it, and because it does better than no build, Alternative 5 is part of the collection of alternatives that we studied. In terms of VMT mitigation, so 1C, 2, 3 have VMT induced impacts or induced VMT. So we've worked with Caltrans to develop some strategies to reduce the VMT to net zero. And the 3 strategies are to implement an express bus on 680, 3 mobility hubs along the stops of this express bus, and then more TDM program or travel demand management programs. The proposal is to provide these 3 mitigation projects for 20 years, and that's what we've accepted through the process with Caltrans. And those things will need to happen, like we need to commit to those mitigation projects if we were to embark on 1C, 2, or 3, if those happen to be one of them happen to be the chosen alternative.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think that helps kind of
So, yeah.
cover the scope of Alternative 1C, 2, and 3 too. It's not that it's just adding a lane, but there is an effort made to address some of the concerns from the VMT side through transit and other means. So that's all part of the package.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
And I guess we should note, Emily, that we have an additional member. Did I need to say that officially?
No, Member Esquivel, I have you down that you arrived.
Okay. Do you have?
This gives me an opportunity to give comment. Please add a lane. Traffic is horrible. There's no way for me to get here from the west side. I've been trying and I'm always late, sorry. So dropping the car. So Alternative 1C, 2, and 3 are my preferred method. Spend the money, it's worth it. Alternative 5, not worth it, and no build. So please, anything that'll reduce congestion would be appreciated.
Noted.
90 minutes to get from El Cerrito to here on the 24.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. And yeah, please do provide the comments formally.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
For it to be recorded and used, because, yeah, so that's recorded through the process. Thank you.
It'd be nice to see some of the modeling. I'm sure probably, I know you, this isn't a full presentation, but yeah, just when you do the public, definitely, I think that visual would help to, with the different alternatives, and they could see, you know, because obviously people are going to be upset when you're talking about taking a lane away. So it'd be nice to see the modeling, and they could see, especially with, I'm sure with the braiding, it's going to improve the traffic flow, getting rid of that. So that's my only comment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So, a couple things. So, I mean, I think, based on my understanding of traffic flows, I think the braiding is probably a huge part of this thing, because the traffic goes much better the second you get past that. It starts speeding up. So I think that's probably a major consideration. I think one thing that you might want to do is explain, I think, a little bit of the theory of the toll lanes. Everybody has whined and cried about toll lanes since anybody even suggested them. And I think my understanding is the theory is we're trying to get more people per hour through that lane, and using a toll lane you can. We're trying to get people into, you know, multiple people in a vehicle to improve that flow. If you just start out by saying we're going to take away a lane, or we're going to create a toll lane, I think people just get pissed. They forget what you're even talking about or what the goal is. And so I think really thinking about the presentation, giving them a tiny bit of theory about why they work and why poorer people that have childcare that costs $20 an hour are happy to pay $6 or $10 to get through a constricted point. People make rational decisions. So I think there's a lot of folklore out there, and people don't really understand what it's for. So you got the reaction that you'll get even bigger from the public, I think, from this group, you know, if you don't, you know, try to set that stage. So that's one way to do it. I think the other thing, I totally agree, you know, the money is not, I don't think those are huge numbers in the scheme of things. And so when it's really about, you know, which one has the highest throughput, which one is going to last the longest, considering, you know, the other things that are going on in public transport, I think is a very important topic. But I think, I don't think the money is that much, to, you know, in the scheme of transportation projects. And then the last thing, addressing the issue of the staging, my company sold movable barriers that were at one point proposed to come through that section, and it's too tight and it didn't happen. But definitely consider movable barriers to do the staging during that construction, because you're going to have really tight spaces. You're probably going to have to work at night, and if you're just working through cones, you know, that's going to be tougher. So I think you might find some opportunities there to save time, if not money.
Thank you.
That's it.
Just to clarify, he's retired and he meant his old company. He wasn't pushing a product unethically.
I didn't think that.
Braid, you got to do the braiding, because yes, in construction terms, it's probably not a lot of money, but I'll look at it as it's still a good amount of money. But if you're going to spend $175 million, go after the $291 million, because the difference there for the long-term benefits of adding the lane and doing the braiding, it will speed up not only 680, but it speeds up 24, and has a big impact on multiple towns in central Contra Costa County and all those people cutting through. So that doesn't take away from the whole charging point and the impact on those people, because that's a whole other conversation. But if we're gonna do this, we have to look at the bigger picture, which is include the braiding and include the extra lane, because it solves so much congestion problems. So I think we're good with that. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for presenting to us. We appreciate you being here.
So just to clarify,
Yeah.
if we want to make a comment, we don't have to go to the meeting, but we could read it and send it in.
Yeah, so let me go back to the slide real quick. So the link, oh, this mouse doesn't work. Okay, right there. So the project, so I think this deck is in your packet, or at least the slide is. I updated it a little bit, but ccta.net/expresslane, if you went to that website, you will find the project website, and there's a form right there where you can just type in your comment and hit send, and that would be the public record. Basically, what you said here are all great comments. Please do provide that to us. You vocalizing it here doesn't get logged into as a formal comment. And on the website also, there are more, like the alternatives video that's shown there. We'll go through the alternatives a little bit more than I did. And then you can also find the draft environmental document on the website for download.
But staff, we could submit a transcript of our comment section today into that formal comment, right?
So from the recording, we don't get a transcript. We would have to type your comments and submit them that way.
Yeah, I think it might be more appropriate for you to individually submit comment. You would put
Okay.
in your name, your comment. If you did it through a letter, it would be, I guess it would have to, yeah, I'm not clear. Maybe we need to ask Terry Ann. It's like the CAC letter. I'm not sure if that's
Well, when is the public comment due in that section?
June 24th. So the website will be up. Does this work if I do it? I don't know. It doesn't share screen. Nope.
The email
Matt?
I got was info@innovate680.com.
Okay, so everybody, if you could make a note, and I know we all volunteer time, but I think we all have something to officially put on the record there.
So if I can just take a moment to share this, if I can make this work. Okay, cool. So ccta.net/expresslane, singular, will get you to this website. It will have places where you can download the environmental document. This is the section I was talking about. You can directly write in your comment right here. You don't need to even start a separate email. You put in your name, your email address, and your zip code, and then you can type away, and then you just say send, and that will be it. If this is not your preferred method, you want to send an email, that's the email address, or you can call this phone number and record your message if you want to just speak. That you can do that too. Less to do. Or you can send a formal letter to the Caltrans staff. They're the CEQA NEPA lead, by the way, just by this, they're the owner and operator of the system. Anyway, so this is the website, and maybe follow up from this, Emily or staff can send you a link to this website. Okay.
Great.
I'll stop there. I know I took a lot of their time, so I will.
Emily, have we received any written public comment about this issue?
We have not received any public comments.
Seeing no members of the public here, thank you, Stephanie. The next item will be introduced by Matt Kelly and presented by Mr. John the Legend.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Stephanie, for that presentation. I just want to encourage everybody to go to that website and watch the video. And I'm selfishly saying that because I helped Stephanie with the video, but we put a lot of thought into both the VMT video and the 680 video. We think it can help not just you, but your neighbors. Send it out to your neighbors. It's a great way to, in 5 minutes, explain the project. So anyway, I'll get on to our next item, which is the 2025 countywide transportation plan. We came to you last year when we were kind of kicking things off and finished up the action plans. So now we're at another kind of milestone point where we'd like to present some findings from some policy papers. So John's going to kick off the presentation tonight, and then I'll play tag team. Let me share my screen here, and we'll get going. Me.
Thanks, Matt. Good evening, Chair Ash and committee members. John Huang, Director of Planning for CCTA. So we'll try to keep this pretty efficient. As you have received the items in the packet already, so hopefully you had a chance to review each one of those papers and so forth, and we'll highlight them in this presentation tonight. So I just want to introduce the item, and then I'll hand it off to Matt. So just want to take a step back and kind of review with you all about the schedule. I'm going to start with phase 0 that's not shown on the screen right now. Phase 0 was completed about 2 years ago. So basically, we worked with the Regional Transportation Planning Committees, RTPCs, and developed 5 action plans. So each action plans cover a certain sub-region of the county. And from those action plans, there were the goals, vision, and also KPIs identified for those communities. And each one of those boards approved those respective plans, and staff brought it up to the CCTA board early last year, I think March of last year, for consideration for adoption as part of the CTP. Having said that, we actually started the phase 1, started the official CTP development soon after the action plans were approved. So the bulk of the year last year and all through probably January, February of this year, we worked on what we call summary papers. We had a lot of different names while we were working on this. It was like working papers, strategy papers, basically looking at various topics and modes to focus on. And each one of these papers, which Matt's going to go over later, and you have in your packet, really has the overall arching guiding principles, the vision goals, and the key performance indicators. So we spent a lot of that working to develop that last year. And then also, so we're right now at where the red star is in phase 2, just at the very beginning of this phase 2. We kind of pivot to a different consultant. So we brought on another consultant along with the environmental impact report consultant that we brought on also, and we're going to move forward in this next phase 2. Right now, and then we're planning to work on the CTP and doing all the outreach and education throughout this year, and by the end of the year, we'll have some kind of draft CTP and EIR with the purpose of adopting the whole document by the mid to end of 2025. Next slide, Matt. So we share this process, and along the ways we're going to do it in a silo. As your committee, Citizen Advisory Committee, you're important to us in the process as well as other committees identified here. So CAC is part of the CCTA committees, which also includes the technical coordinated committees, which is made up of the RTPC staff and city staff, transit agency staff, and also the RTPCs themselves, which we will present at certain phases of the project. We also have a stakeholders group, which is a stakeholder advisory group, which is the NGOs, the non-government organizations, the activists, the Bike Contra Costa, East Bay, Bike East Bay, and others group that has a focus interest in either transportation or housing or a combination of both. And also we have the outreach events. We call it summary in this slide, but it actually stretches from now through the end of the year, in which we attend a lot of the events at the cities, including local festivals in Walnut Creek and Lafayette and all throughout the county. So all that kind of rolls up to the CTP task force, which comprise of staff from the cities, and then also we roll it up to the planning committee. That's where I, as the Director of Planning, and Matt are the staff liaisons for that committee. And also, in addition to that, we form a CTP ad hoc committee, which is comprised of members from the board, which includes a member, Renata Sauce from Moraga, Chris Kelly, Commissioner Chris Kelly from Hercules, Supervisor Ken Carlson, and also Commissioner Hernandez Thorpe from Antioch. So those are the ad hoc committee that really advised, and that's actually the first group that we vetted these papers through. And of course, everything goes up to the board. Next slide. So I'm going to kind of touch base on these. These are all these papers that you have in your packet and that Matt's going to kind of highlight through tonight is really guided by 4 principles and their different modes that really makes up the CTP. And again, these have been distilled down tremendously to like a 2-pager, but behind these papers, there are actually written documents that we can certainly share with y'all, about 20 to 30 pages, depending on the topic. So with that, Matt, I think I'm done, and I'm going to hand it off to you. Oh, and one more thing, okay. So this is a draft schedule. This is basically a different way to show the schedule, which I articulated where those slides, we have the circles there. So again, we're looking at like a fall, winter adoption of the CTP. Thanks, Matt. Next slide. Okay, so before we go into Matt's presentation, are there questions for me before we dive into the papers themselves?
Anybody? I think we need, right, don't they go together? Or
Yeah, yeah, so we'll pause here, and then we'll go to the next section, but I just want to give an opportunity if there's any questions now. But we can hold your questions at the end, too.
Yeah, let's, okay, thank you, John. Matt, let's continue and with your part of it.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Wait, sorry, Matt, hold on.
Sorry, I'm sorry,
Oh, why we're having a countywide transportation plan? So this is a requirement of the Measure J, sales tax measure. So we should be having a plan, a long-range plan that looks 25 years down the road. So Matt mentioned a 2025 plan, which is technically a 2050 plan. Looks like all the transportation projects and programs that we plan to do in the next 25 years, and it really sets the stage for the next tax measure.
Thank you.
Good question. Thanks, John. So I'm going to dive into the papers. Each paper, and we're presenting 5 today, is kind of guided by these 4 guiding principles of transportation equity, safety, the environment, so resilience and sustainability, and then innovation and technology, which the authority is always interested in weaving into our projects. So the 5 papers we're presenting today are growth management, land use and housing, public transit, active transportation, so bikes, pedestrians and micro transit, roadways and vehicles, and then multimodal corridor planning. There is another paper, but it's very technical about kind of how we use data and with respect to our travel demand forecasting model, but we can share that in the future. Each paper has been summarized with a vision, a list of goals to support the vision, policies to support the goals, and KPIs, which John mentioned are key performance indicators, which is how we track the performance of all of these. So I'm going to, and here's a little bit more on the guiding principles. So transportation equity should focus on serving all users, all destinations, without economic, social, and physiological barriers, climate resiliency and sustainability, basically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and plan for sea level rise, wildfire, and other natural issues. Innovation and technology, we'll be planning for autonomous vehicles, on-demand mobility, traffic signal priority, all kinds of good innovative things using technology, and then safety, very important. Transportation is a public health issue as much as it is a planning and engineering exercise. It's how people can stay healthy. People can stay healthy through transportation. I'm just going to jump into the papers now. So the first paper is Growth Management, Land Use, and Housing. I'd say this is the paper most germane to this group, but not the only thing. But I'm highlighting a few items on each paper. I'm not going to go through everything because it is in your packet, but I just wanted to point out some things that are germane to this group, and then, but we can talk about anything. So growth management, it's really to facilitate coordinated land use development patterns in Contra Costa that connects our communities, provides economic opportunities, supports that public health, and our existing investments in the system. And so one of the goals here that I'd like to highlight is that we use our growth management program that you guys essentially oversee to implement kind of new authority initiatives such as, Vision Zero, our integrated transit plan, kind of unifying transit around Contra Costa County, and then our accessibility strategic plan and our mobility on demand efforts. So, we think the GMP tool can be used to really make sure that all of these things are being implemented countywide, because as you know, there is money tied to the growth management program, and being in compliance with it gives our local jurisdictions their return to source funds. So some policies that could support that is that perhaps CCTA and perhaps even this group should review local updates to general plan amendments like land use or circulation updates to general plans. That's something we don't oversee. We get it when it's done, but we aren't involved in the process. Perhaps the GMP should integrate compliance with MTC's Transit-Oriented Communities program, which is really focused on densifying areas around transit hubs. And then a favorite of mine, and hopefully of this group, is to create incentives to encourage early submittal of the GMP checklists, so you guys don't get 20 of them in 3 months like we did last year. Yeah, those are just some ideas that we're floating around. Another policy could reward jurisdictions that construct high density and affordable housing, especially if they're located around transit areas. And then encourage zoning policies that result in affordable housing production, preservation, protection, and displacement avoidance. Some of the performance metrics that we could use to track this is tracking the number of market rate affordable units and ADUs constructed, not just in a city, but within close proximity to transit priority areas or our transit stations. And then what percent of LSM funds, those return to source funds, are actually directed towards multimodal projects and not just roadway maintenance. So that's growth management. I'm going to roll through these, and just when we get to the end, you guys can ask me about anything. So public transit, we would really, the vision is to more efficiently move people around the county. And the best way to move lots of people at once is in a public transit vehicle. So improve access to more destinations, expand the infrastructure, and resulting in an integrated, equitable, and dynamic transit system. And so some goals that we could look at are, achieving a 60% increase over current transit mode ridership. It shouldn't be mode share, actually. It should be ridership. So, transit mode share may be, 10% during the peak right now, or in some places 20%, but averages around 10%. Should we maybe not get the transit mode share to 60%, but just increase overall ridership on each transit line by 60%. And then develop transit service with our providers that is competitive with driving your car by yourself in terms of the amount of time it takes. So some policies to support that. Start looking at locations around the county where we could repurpose arterial lanes for bus lanes, or that would be in unique cases, or in other places just putting traffic signal priority that actually speeds buses through signalized intersections. And then going back to our mobility on demand effort, basically making the user not have to think about what transit agency or TNC they're using. They just want to get from A to B. They pull up an app. The app tells them all the ways they can get from A to B, how much it'll cost, how much time it'll take, and let the user pick the right choice for themselves, and it pays everybody, and the user doesn't have to think about it. Some performance indicators that we could use to track the performance is the average travel time per resident of our equity priority communities versus non-equity priority community residents. So, in areas that have been, kind of haven't received the same level of investment in their transportation infrastructure, what are we doing for them? Are we improving their commutes versus other areas that have, received their kind of fair share of funding over the years? And then looking at the percent of all trips made using transit, and how many people were shifting from single occupant vehicles to public transit. Now moving on to active transportation, which, like I mentioned, is bikes, pedestrians, and micromobility devices, those scooters and other things that are out there these days that can get you around mostly on two wheels. So it's really to provide a connected, attractive, and safe network of on-street and off-street trails and facilities that really provides mobility for all ages and abilities and all purposes for everyone. So, some goals would be to implement complete streets approaches on all roadways, when applicable, but really being looked at in all cases. You can't put a bike lane on every single street, but you should at least be considering that in your design. And that's the idea of complete streets, that you're making streets available for accessible for all users by providing space for everybody. Prioritize completion of a low stress bike network around the county. So that's basically a protected facility where people feel comfortable riding their bikes, and they can get from Walnut Creek to Concord to Martinez to to Hercules. Achieve countywide Vision Zero, really reducing and hopefully cutting fatalities and severe injuries on our system. And a great way of getting there is to provide education and awareness training, both to kids, adults, seniors, everybody. Let them know how to access the system, how to ride safely. And then some of the policies would be to construct a countywide walkway network along with that low stress bike network by 2030. And expand the 511 Contra Costa electric bike rebate program. It was very popular when we rolled it out a couple of years ago, but perhaps it should be focused on low-income travelers by doubling the rebate, or perhaps tripling for low-income residents. And ways of tracking the performance, well, really looking at the safety, how many people are being injured or killed, and how we're reducing that number. The number of miles of completing those low stress networks, and the number of miles of off-street shared use trails. Those facilities really get the most use. The Iron Horse trails, the Ohlone trails, the Delta de Anza trails, yeah. And then tracking the number of rebates distributed to low-income residents. Roadways and vehicles. This is what our countywide plan mostly focused on in the past, but as you can see, we've broadened it for this plan, but we still want to make sure that we have a roadway network that does operate at a level of performance that supports the needs of the users. And providing access to local and regional destinations, both in Contra Costa and the rest of the Bay Area, because of the critical transportation infrastructure, that provides space for goods movement and connects our communities. So some goals to go along with that is to enhance mobility for all users while managing congestion. We heard that loud and clear in our last item. We need to address congestion when we can. Manage speeds to enable safer travel for people. We want to speed up traffic on the freeways, but perhaps on some of our arterials, we want to slow things down and make it safer for everyone. And then some policies would be to adapt, Innovate 680 vision, the whole 680 vision to our other corridors, where we're implementing, the full suite of projects that are multimodal, that are introducing technology, and that are really focused on moving the most amount of people through a corridor. And then on our local streets, encourage the use of roundabouts as a standard type of intersection instead of new traffic signals. There's lots of different types to fit different locations. There's been a lot of research here. Perhaps that can be incorporated into our way of doing business. Implement innovative strategies when it comes to managing our curbs. A lot of activity happens at our curbs, both loading of people, of goods. We've got transit, we've got pedestrians, we've got bicycles, we've got TNCs. Really use technology to make the most out of our curb space, and encourage dynamic parking pricing. In locations where jurisdictions are charging for pricing, maybe one size does not fit all. Maybe you're charging more during the peak times and less during off-peak times, instead of just the same price all day long. So some performance indicators to look at. How many people are we moving on our roadways? Like someone said earlier, one of the goals of the toll lanes is to move more people. So how many people are we moving in all of our lanes? And what is our annual reduction in VMT, not just at the countywide level, but on each of our regional routes? And finally, multimodal corridor planning. So we've done a lot of corridor planning in the past, but this really seeks to enhance it for all modes, and maybe we start calling it complete corridors, and looking at corridors as a way to connect our communities and connect our different regions of the county, and support efficient land uses. So perhaps we could implement complete corridor designs that focus on diverse infrastructure and safety innovations. So, that a street doesn't just have 6 lanes of traffic with a wide median, that it has other things that allow more folks to not just travel through, but cross. A lot of these corridors are tough to cross, and some people just want to get from one side of, I live in El Cerrito. I just want to get to Richmond, and it's crossing a wide street, but sometimes that's not very easy. And and provide regional corridors that are safe, convenient, comfortable, and accessible for all modes. Some policies, going back to the growth management program, maybe we could require new projects to consider these complete corridor design guidelines. We maybe not that you're doing every little thing that's in the guidelines, but you're at least going through a checklist in the guidelines and making sure you're addressing them in your plans. Looking at connecting our communities, perhaps we look at different ways of managing the public right-of-way to allow non-vehicular uses, especially when at off-peak hours, when our streets aren't being used for commuting or getting to school or wherever people are going at 3 p.m. But, things like street fairs, outdoor dining, automobile racing or bike racing, and ciclovias. I don't know if you've heard of those. They exist. They started in South America. Now they exist all over North America, where a city like Los Angeles will close down 20 miles of streets on a Sunday. They've done it in Berkeley and San Francisco, and just let the community take over the street. Not shut down the town, just shut down a street. Once again, coming back to the GMP, let's see. I think I already mentioned that one. Okay. So some performance, key performance indicators we could use here are the number of miles of complete corridors. In other words, corridors designed for all modes. And then looking at intersections, where do we have those smart signals that John has presented to you in the past that are actually detecting not just cars, but buses and bikes and pedestrians, and making sure they all get access through the intersection. So that's my summary of the paper, my summary of the summary papers. I'd be glad to go over anything with you. We're really just looking to see if we missed anything, if there's anything you think is really important, or stuff that you think is just that won't fly. As you can see from this slide, we've gone to, you're the fourth group we've hit, so we've received several comments that aren't reflected on these slides, but we will definitely be taking all that feedback we received and incorporating them. So I'd like to open up the conversation, Chair.
Great, thank you, Matt and John. That was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to my right this time, and one by one, let's weigh in.
Okay, so I'd never seen this thing before. I actually thought it was pretty good. I mean, I think I understood it pretty quickly, and I thought the KPI, I thought overall it was good. I like the KPIs, and I guess my one comment is it would be really nice to put KPI, where are we today, and what's the goal in whatever 5 years or 10 years. I mean, put it right out there. I don't think we will always succeed, but one of the questions we ask in this group when we do our city reviews is, well, how did that work? Was it good? Did it meet your expectations? And there's no answers. I mean, I don't think there's ever an answer that's really clear that we got more bikes, we got more kids riding to school. I mean, there's never an answer. And so I'd put the KPIs in there and make every stakeholder that's participating in it really clear that's what we're trying to do. And I don't know how low down you can go, by city with all those, or if it's just countywide, but that's what I'd like to see. So, but overall, I thought it was good.
Thanks. And part of, once we, through the countywide plan and we settle on these KPIs, the first step will be to collect baseline information. So we have that starting place.
It sounds like it's a pretty comprehensive plan. I guess the only thing I can think about is the walkability. It'd be nice to kind of see, I know when you talk about Contra Costa, it's a large area, but if you break it down the cities, doing a walkability study, something like that, have the different cities, and that's one thing I didn't really see too much about, but.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Matt, thank you for this presentation. Very informative. And reading through the papers here, and I appreciate the values. I think it was the key values that CCTA has, which was sustainability, equity, transportation, and safety. But going through these policy papers and listening to your summary, I didn't hear a whole lot about safety. I heard, giving classes for, cross, I don't know what form of transportation that would be, but bicycles, pedestrian classes and stuff like that. But can you talk a little bit about like crime and what CCTA is doing to kind of combat the rise in crime on public transportation?
Yeah, when we talk about safety and transportation, most of the time we're talking about injuries, sustained while moving yourself through whatever mode. So, but that is something that has come up, especially, through discussions with BART and things like that, where people talk about how safe they feel, on a particular, mode of transportation. So, unfortunately, CCTA doesn't have a big role in that. During the last BART measure, we really tried to, hold them to that funding from the measure would go towards those perceptions of safety and the actual crime and cleanliness of the vehicles. So it's something CCTA can't directly address, but I think it is worthwhile, when we're talking about safety in the context of a countywide transportation plan, to talk about those types of issues. So that is a good comment. You're right. It wasn't, we refer to safety a lot in these papers, but it's not that safety in that context. So I think we can, as part of the plan, bring it into probably we talk about it mostly in the public transit conversation, because I feel like that's where it comes up the most. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was clapping when I saw the comment about protecting bicycles, storage lockers for bicycles. So thank you. I enjoyed that.
Colin, our bike planner, will appreciate that.
Yes, thank you for that. And I did want to second my colleague's comment about safety. And I was thinking that technology can assist with keeping our system safe while at the same time protecting privacy and protecting private data. But technology does help keep people accountable for safety. So maybe the CCTA could look at technology and supporting videos, camera recordings. That is important. So thank you. I second your comment. And maybe my last comment is a big vision. It's a 25-year plan. So allowing room for growth, about dedicated, I think I was inspired when we went to go see Go Momentum, and we saw that you need a dedicated right of way for autonomous vehicles, for public transit autonomous vehicles. But we don't want to hog the road. We don't want to take a whole corridor and just leave it for multi-use. But think about these big, long corridors that you mentioned, connectivity in the community, El Cerrito. I feel like I do love the hills. They separate El Cerrito from Pleasant Hill. And we don't want to tunnel through there. And it's beautiful Tilden Park area, but we're not connected. So we need corridors in our area to connect us, and just allowing room for these dedicated future corridors so we can move a lot of people. So just that would be like the big vision for that. Thank you.
Thanks.
I thought it was a very comprehensive goal for a strong plan, and I like the KPIs that were chosen to judge it. So, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I was struck by that, the goal of 60% increased ridership in transit. Very enviable goal. Just so, I heard that you were talking about bus lanes being expressed. So I'm wondering if you might elaborate a little bit in terms of getting people out of their cars. It seems like they would, the county really needs to spend some time thinking about the time that transit takes versus vehicle time that it takes to get from A to B. Wondering if you might elaborate a little bit more on those solutions.
Yeah, so, I can speak to a project I've been working on lately, which is on San Pablo Avenue in West Contra Costa, where we have been looking at what we can do with that corridor. What else can we put in the limited right of way? And whenever you start talking about a lane for buses, you're taking away a lane for cars. And that affects travel times for those single occupant vehicles or any private auto using the lane. It would very much speed up travel times for transit users. And so on a corridor like that, really what you're hoping for is that if you were to take that lane, is that the vehicle drivers, the folks that have jumped off of I-80 to use it as a shortcut will jump back on I-80. That's number one hope, but you hope that anyways. But number two is that the drivers will see the attractiveness of a fast, frequent bus, blowing past them and try it out. But it's something you have to weigh, just like with the 680 express lane discussion. You're not going to make everybody happy. There's trade-offs anytime you give up any sort of right of way to a different mode. Yeah, it's a tough decision that you have to make. But I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but it's something that we have to weigh every time we ask that question. Who belongs in this right of way, or what modes belong in this right of way? It's all about trade-offs.
Absolutely. And then just one other comment really was, just seconding the micromobility autonomous vehicle lanes. I think that's a really good use of infrastructure, not that costly. And I think it could be really effective in increasing that ridership and getting people where they want to go much quicker than a vehicle. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, very comprehensive presentation. Thank you. The only question I have is how much of a participation, collaboration, cooperation you're having with the cities in the county? Are they on board for the most part?
Yeah, I would say they are. We did run this through our elected officials. First off, that ad hoc committee that John mentioned, and they shot down some maybe more. I wouldn't say they shot down any ideas, but they shot down areas where cities would be required to do certain things that they're not doing today that would be difficult for some jurisdictions. So we may have softened the language in some places, like instead of require certain things, it would be to encourage or promote or collaborate with cities on doing these things. So, as CCTA, we want to feel like we're, walking in step with the cities and not forcing them to do anything. But for the most part, they've been very supportive of the vision and doing kind of innovative things and doing more multimodal things. But you never know until you have a project that is proposed for a certain location,
Right.
to find really how people feel.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, Matt, I guess first question, is this the first version of a 25-year plan that we've done? Or is this a 5-year rolling redo? What's
Yeah.
the process?
Yeah, you got it. Every 5 to 7 years, we have a chance to improve our previous 25-year plan, and every time it goes out another 5 years. And we do stay consistent with MTC in the region, the regional transportation plan. So it goes out to 2050. When they extend theirs out to 2055, we will extend ours out and update ours. So, and then our plan feeds into their plan. So the projects from our plan feed into the regional plan.
Good to know. Along those lines, is there a red line version out there somewhere that illuminates what the big idea changes are, if any, from the 2045 plan to this upcoming 2050 plan? Like, where are the paradigm shifts in it?
I think that's what we're coming up with right now, but through these policy papers and settling down on new policies and new ideas. Once we've kind of distilled that down, I think we can provide a good comparison between this and the 2017 plan.
Mac, if I can just add to what Matt just said, so the difference between this one and the previous ones are the first CTP that we did, whatever year it is, in the 1990s, right? We've been essentially updating it, the same plan, maybe for 7 years, right, or 7 years. So this one is really is intended to be an overhaul. So we're starting fresh, we're not really updating, so that's the difference that we're doing with this plan. And we can certainly, there's a lot of elements, we're not, a lot of the ideas and so forth, if you actually look at the old plans, they're not that, you can see the same ideas still floating around, right? If you look at a plan from 20 years ago, they still want to reduce congestion and increase ridership and so forth, but there's new technologies, new ways of doing things with this plan that we want to kind of revamp and capture. And then, and again, I appreciate all the comments. You just keep in mind, this is like the first introduction of this process. It's going to be a long process, and we'll bring this stuff back to you on a regular basis. You'll be tired of Matt and I talking, and we have to bring somebody else in. And
Too late.
Touche.
I won't speak for the entire group, but I think this might be more intriguing than GMPs that come every 2 or 3 every meeting. I would be very interested, once you land the 25 plan, to have a kind of a, what were the sea changes between our previous plan and the 2025? Where does it take us in fundamentally different directions? I heard 3 specific things that caught my attention, and I saw them when I was doing the work through. Roundabouts. Lived in the UK for 4 years. Love them. When you're building new infrastructure, they're wonderful. They're not that much more expensive to put in when you're starting new. It's a bit like BACMed telling everyone you're going to have to put in a heat pump to replace your natural gas furnace in a few years. Wonderful if you're building a new house, just put in a heat pump, no big deal. To go in and change out a gas system in a house is a big deal. And changing a 4-way stop that already exists into a roundabout is a significant amount of money. I think Alamo will get through the growing pains with the one that just went in at the shopping center, but it gets blown up on next door. But the whole concept of roundabouts, I think, is one that will deserve some more discussion. I loved your comment about changing out one mode of transit to another creates challenges. And one area that I anecdotally see that playing out as we encourage more biking, you got a lot of people who like to walk the Iron Horse Trail. And then you've got these folks who get on the bikes and they're clanging their little horns and, their little bells, and my wife's hard of hearing, and I'm like, you're about to get run over. And then she's like, why'd you do that? And I said, well, because this guy's about to run you over. So, there is some trade-offs going on as we want to get people out and walk, and some people don't want to ride a bike, or don't need to ride a bike. They just want to have a short walk, and they're at risk of getting run over by a bike. So I think that whole mode of transit, thinking about spaces we've set aside for walking that are being shared with bikers, and are there ways we can think about going about that a little bit more thoughtfully as those become more features in our landscape. And lastly, the whole thing about curb utilization, that sounds like a project that might need some scope limitation. I think, doing a digital survey of the curbs in my very suburban neighborhood probably doesn't add a lot of value, because they see a trash can once a week, so they're not terribly high value. Now, when you get into Old Town Danville or Central Walnut Creek, understanding curbs and managing them as an asset, which I'm hearing we want to do, is intriguing. But it seems like we got to really bound how many curbs we go out and look at. We can probably get 90% of the benefit looking at about 10% of the curbs. So that's kind of the things that caught my attention. That's all.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Signal timing. Synchronized lights, which I know John is working on a lot in another area of his job. But it matters, and both within the cities and between cities. And CCTA is the only one that can make the cities do it. And you hear me ask, I think, every speaker for their compliance reports if they talk to neighboring cities, or if they promise to, for synchronizing lights. And I would say at least half of them look at me like, why would I ever talk to another city about synchronizing lights on a route of regional significance? But I have 6 traffic lights down Treat on my way home. I will hit all 6 red lights. I was coming back from Orinda on Monday evening at 7 o'clock, and it took me 6 minutes at a normal pace of the highway between Orinda and the Walnut Creek Ignacio Valley exit. I then hit 11 traffic lights just in the city of Walnut Creek down Ignacio Valley Road. And so that is great for the climate if people aren't idling at traffic lights. And, well, you guys know the benefits. I'll stop talking about that. The next area, it came up earlier, is air transit. When we're looking 25 years out, that isn't unrealistic anymore. There are companies here, of all places, and there are companies that have spoken at CCTA Micromobility Summit 2 years ago, or Redefining Mobility Summit 2 years ago, that do air transit. And having flights take off from the Walnut Creek National Guard Armory, or I think there's an armory in Antioch, or Buchanan Field or Byron, that could bring people to somewhere in downtown San Francisco or Palo Alto or Sacramento. As those companies are growing, is it going to be in the next 5 years? No, but in the next 25 years, those companies likely will be here, so we should start planning for it. And I think my last point is, and I heard a number of people talk about this, is projects like Glideways coming in East County. We did not account for systems such as theirs expanding to West or Central counties. Where could those autonomous technologies be? And I didn't see that anywhere in this, so I'd love to see some element of, I know you talk about technologies and you talk about autonomous, but I feel like there's something missing there, and you guys probably know what it is based on what I'm talking more than I do. And sorry, I thought of one other thing is, I didn't see that in there that you touch safe routes to schools, which I know you guys do a lot about. Does safe routes in there? So one of the things I have noticed is that middle school kids don't seem to bike or scooter or walk anymore. They all have electric things that they are zipping through, and that needs to be accounted for in some way, shape, or form, related particularly to middle school I think, students, just because that is a rapidly growing, changing in certain areas of this county. Okay, sorry, I'm going to keep going. One last one. I'd love to know how we compare to some of the comments Michael made is, how do we compare to other counties, right? So as you're redlining this to our own plan, how, like, right, I believe Tim Hale has sold me on, we are like the leader in California and the West of innovating in transportation. How do we compare to the MTC counties, right? That'd be great. Okay, I'll stop talking now. Thank you,
Chair. I
guys.
just want to note that you won't see any references to Glideways, but you will see, because that's a name brand, you will see references to ATN, which is Autonomous Transit Network, which is what transit mode Glideways is.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, thank you both. I think we have one other item, which I don't think will take long. We will let John go to bed. Matt, you have, sorry, do we have any other public comment online?
We do not have any
Nobody's
public
here?
comments.
Okay, great. Okay, so Matt, we have one other item for informational purposes. Do you want to present that to us?
Yes, thank you,
Calendar
Chair.
year.
I will try and get through this pretty quickly. Really, this is an informational item that I brought to our authority board last week, and it is the release of the new checklist. So it's time for 20 new checklists to start coming in. We actually, this presentation that I'm going to show you was designed for our board, so they understand what it takes to put together a checklist. So when they instruct their staff to put together a checklist, they know it isn't just something that one staffer can do in an afternoon, that it takes a village, as I say. And so I will have what I call our checklist primer or tutorial for you all at our next meeting before the checklists actually start coming in. And that's where I walk you guys through how to review a checklist, what you should be looking for. But here I'm just going to show you what we showed to the board. So it's just kind of a highlight of the checklist itself. So just reminding them what the growth management program is, and that it was under Measure C, now strengthened under Measure J, really requires that cooperative, coordinated transportation land use planning among local jurisdictions that Jared loves, assures that new development pays for the impacts of it and the facilities required to meet that growth, and supports efficient land use patterns, and encourages infill and redevelopment in existing urban and brownfield areas, therefore protecting agricultural and green fields. So the checklist is the mechanism for determining local compliance, and it's overseen by you all. And all these things that you all probably know, that there's a 13-month season until next June to submit the checklist. So between now and next June, we will get 20 checklists. Hopefully they come in sporadically and not all at once. And that each checklist really releases 2 years of 18% of Measure J funds to the cities. In this case, it'll be fiscal years 23-24 and 24-25. And our last checklist that you guys finished in January allocated $46.3 million back to the places where you live for local improvements. So I'm just going to walk through the items. I'm not going to go through everything because these are things you guys probably have already picked up on, but I'll go into more depth in the tutorial. So, item number 1 is about the action plans. Has the jurisdiction participated in development of their local action plan, and what are they doing to implement it? Item 2 is Development Mitigation Program. Each jurisdiction is required to have a local fee program that collects funds on projects and applies them to transportation. So each city is required to have one, and there's also a sub-regional one. So in each city, there are 2 fee programs, a local and a regional. And the sub-regional one is run at the RTPC level. Item 3 is about housing. Basically, it's asking if the jurisdiction is in compliance with the state housing laws, and how is it, and make sure it is addressing multimodal options into housing development approval. Item 4 basically asks, are the cities analyzing their new projects in the correct way? We have a uniform way across the county that projects should be analyzed for their impacts. This verifies that the cities are doing that. Item 5, are you participating in your RTPC, both at the staff level and the elected level? Are you implementing your action plans, and are you following all the rules that are in the GMP for the RTPCs? Has each jurisdiction adopted a 5-year CIP specifically for transportation? Has each city adopted a TSM, or more commonly known as TDM, Transportation Demand Management Program? It's required for all jurisdictions under Measure J. The most high-profile component of the GMP is probably the urban limit line. Each jurisdiction is required to have a voter-approved urban limit line, and the checklist is making sure they do, and asks, have you made any changes? Have you had any? Has anything come up with your urban limit line over the last 2 years? Item 9, each jurisdiction is required to have a growth management element in their general plan. CCTA came up with a model GME or a template GME that the cities can use, but they all are required to have an element in their general plan that describes how they approach growth management. Posting of signs. This is one where we're just looking to make sure that the cities are documenting or making it transparent where the funding is coming from for projects. So if you're receiving more than $250,000 from Measure J for a project, you darn well better have a sign up that meets our specifications. The bigger, the better. Take a picture of it. Submit it with your checklist. Item 11 is maintenance of effort. This is when we started the return to source and giving 18% of Measure J back to the cities, for maintenance of their local roads and other transportation costs or funding. We wanted to make sure that they weren't supplanting their existing maintenance funds with these new return to source funds. So we developed a baseline of what they were spending back in 2004 on their maintenance, and that became basically their minimum. They needed to keep spending that amount of money of their own general funds on maintenance, and then the Measure J funds are on top of that. So we need them to prove to us this is what we spent on non-Measure J funds, and this is what we spent on Measure J funds. And then this is for more detailed auditing. Item 12, exactly how are you spending those 18% funds that you get back? How much did you get from us? How did you spend it in these 6 categories? And then on any individual expenditure over $10,000, what exactly did the Measure J money get you? And this goes back to those key performance indicators, reportable metrics that we can then tell the public, this is how your Measure J money is being spent locally. And then item 13, if this jurisdiction feels they've done something extra special, they can include it. But that's really it. And the board went along with the recommendation to not add anything new, to release the 2022-2023 checklist and encourage early submittal of the checklist through staff outreach and assistance. And that could also include, and hopefully will include, your outreach to your local jurisdiction. Encourage them to submit their checklist starting next month, because starting in September, we will have all of your money from our annual tax revenues, and we will be sitting on it and waiting for you to submit a checklist and get your money. So we'd rather that we're not sitting on cities' money. We'd rather that money go to the cities as soon as possible. So anything any of us can do to encourage the cities to submit their checklists sooner is beneficial for everyone, including this committee. So that's my item. Like I said, I can take questions now, but we will go more into depth in this at our next meeting.
Thanks, Matt. I just have a clarification question. Builder's remedy, to those going under the state builder's remedy, out of compliance, when the cities are out of compliance with housing, do they still have to live up to transportation fees and plans, or how does that work?
Yes, those state laws don't supersede Measure J.
Other questions, comments? Rosa?
Two questions. How do I pay for Measure J? Is it sales tax? Like, how do we?
Half cent on every purchase.
Oh, sales.
Yes.
Okay. And the last question is, did the CCTA exist before Measure J?
It did, but under Measure C. Measure C was passed in 1988, and there was no CCTA prior to that.
And Measure J expires when?
2034.
And if a new measure is not passed, they will have to look for other jobs.
Well, we do have some, our program side receives state funding and regional funding, so we would still have some programs that would exist, but we wouldn't be building any fourth bores to the Caldecott or building EBART to Antioch or northbound express lane. Those would go away.
Right. Okay, thank you, Matt and everybody for that. Next are committee member or staff comments. Anybody have any comments, questions, future topics they want to have discussed?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the plan for meetings June, July, and August, just so we know?
We skip August, right, Emily?
We do skip August. It is dark for all committees.
Okay.
And then June and July, we will notify you.
Okay.
Yep.
But could skip forward, not worry about it.
Yeah. Other comments,
Yeah.
questions, future topics? Yeah.
Matt, I have a friend of my Martinez City Council, so if you could send me some basic information, pretty much what we if you can give an outline what we've done the last year, how much money we gave to Martinez specifically and how much we gave out to all the cities, just something brief like that I can present to them. I know you work on a PowerPoint presentation. If you don't have that, if you have that, please send that too. Thanks.
Yes, I do have it ready to go for you. I'm just waiting for my executive director to sign off on it, and he's been sitting on it for a while. So I will remind him and get it to you as soon as I can.
Matt, that sort of came up as one of our conversations, I think, when we were at Gomentum, which is possibly presenting not only on the letter on the Capitol Corridor to the board, but maybe updating the authority board about what we do and what we've been up to, and then maybe going back to some of our cities and doing that, because I think you're not the only one who's been asked, like, what do we do, and can we give reports on it? So I don't know if there's a way you can then take that and make a report that one can go to the board here and then shows every city Measure J in a line, but then we could take that without you having to retailer it to all of our cities and.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've designed it. The first several slides could be used by anyone, and just talk about this CAC in general and what you guys do. And then the last few slides focus on each city. So I'm tailoring that for Martinez and other cities.
Yeah.
I can share that at our next meeting.
Yeah, just to follow on Jared's comment earlier, I'm wondering if there might be any analysis or presentations on the airspace issues that might be coming up for the next 25-year plan, drones, air taxis, et cetera, or if that might be looked at a different date.
Yeah, we can certainly add that. John, are we calling that stuff eVTOL? I think that's what we're calling it in the countywide plan.
Yeah, we can certainly bring that back.
Great.
Yeah, we'll find a speaker who can speak to that.
Great, thanks.
Other comments, questions, member
Chair?
reports, staff reports? Yes.
I do have one. So as it was mentioned previously, the community event series, last year you may recall it was the summer event series. This year, because we have expanded to not just summer, outside of summer, fall, all year round events. It's the community event series. So I just want to mention that our next event is in Martinez on June 15th. We will be at the Barbecue Festival. If anybody would like to stop by and see our booth and kind of what we have going on.
Great. We are therefore adjourned at 8:02. Thank you.